All right, so let's make a formal introduction for our listener. Good morning, Terry. My name is Claudio. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C. From the Swiss Fairfax City. We're very humble and grateful that Terry Oldfield accepted our invitation to our show. Terry, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Same, very nice talking to you. Man, the last 2 years with the COVID pandemic, some people believe in the vaccine, some people don't, but definitely, has affected, all of us. And in one way or another, some countries took this time more seriously than others. And then how affected you? How affected your creativity? How you holding up?
Well, we were on tour in Europe in 2019, and after the tour, we went to Thailand for a couple of weeks, and that's when it all started to happen, just around Christmas time. We already had our tour for 2020 lined up, and we had to cancel everything, which was very difficult. Hard to get used to the idea of being restricted like that. But we have a beautiful place here in Australia, and have my studio, and we just gradually settled into doing stuff here, doing stuff in the garden, coming back into the present moment, and just making the most of it. But I was a bit disappointed in there was one particular thing we were asked to do in the Czech Republic, which I prepared for. It was at a music camp, and I was asked to do some master classes for professional musicians, orchestral players, and I was looking forward to that because I have no training, you see.
Yeah.
And I was going to talk about improvisation and the connection with the intuition and playing new things, which is not easy for a orchestral player. I noticed when they're in between their parts, they pick up the newspaper and they're very relaxed in that sense. But when you ask them to come up with something from their own, from the depths of their being, like sort of in the moment, it's a bit more difficult, because I have run a few workshops like that before, and you can be very technically brilliant, but to actually allow the music to flow through you as though you're a channel is a very difficult thing, because you have to actually get out of the way and forget about all your training, and somehow just be a kind of conduit for the energy of the moment.
That's a very good point. What do you think that people have a hard time doing that? I mean, letting go in a way, and then let the music flow. And
well, it's a bit like when I started learning the flute, because I'm self-taught. I taught myself.
Yeah,
it's really important to do the training to tell the fingers need to know where all the keys are. You need to have that technique. You need to have the body needs to feel comfortable with the instrument, and then you've got all the with wind instruments, you have all the breathing to cope with as well. You have to develop your the breath and the strength to create the embouchure for the flute.
Yeah.
So you have to. It's almost like doing weight training for the lips. All these muscles around here have to be developed in such a way that they can produce a very narrow, strong jet of air. Because when you first start playing the flute, you can. I can actually demonstrate. I've got
that would be great. Yeah.
So when you start playing the flute, you've got a very wide band of air. So you get a sound like this. And you're using all the air in your lungs. But then when you develop the ability to create this very fine jet of air that's very powerful, you start to develop a tone, which is as opposed to and you're using all your breath, and you're getting out of breath and getting dizzy, and so it's a very difficult thing to start. But when the body learns to relax with the instrument, it's a bit like, substitute the flute for the human body. The human body is an instrument. It's in its own right, because it's being played by the circumstances of the moment. The temperature of the air is all coming into play. And the more we can relax into the body, and again, relax with the flute, the more we can be easy with the moment. And so it's really a way to get out of the way, is a better way of describing it. You actually remove yourself from the equation. And by the self, I mean the fictitious entity that we create based upon beliefs, opinions, judgments, stories, all that memory that we project onto the future. And now I'm in a situation now where I no longer believe in the separation of individual selves, like individual personalities, because through a lifetime of inquiry, somehow that has diminished in its intensity and power. So I can now relax into being in the present moment, which allows, and so I don't really write music anymore as such, because you've probably noticed in your experience with listening to an enormous number of musicians that we all have our style, our tune, if you like, our original melody, and we can get stuck in just creating variations on the theme. It's hard to come up with something new after a while, because you're so full of tunes. I mean, I'm a tune magnet. I have to be very careful, because if I hear tunes playing, they start to try to loop in my consciousness. And I found that actually recently as a very useful thing. I have, myself, and I noticed my brother has it as well. We have a habit of humming. They used to call us the Hum Brothers, Mike and I.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, becoming aware of that humming and how it creates movement in the body, like I would find my foot tapping to the humming to the tunes I was creating in my mind. And the more I became aware of that, the more I was able to actually come into the present moment, because I see the humming as a kind of avoidance of the present moment, because the separate self, which is a fiction in my experience, doesn't want to face the emptiness which it sees as the present moment, because in the present moment there's no room for me as such, because I have to dive into the being of flow, which is constantly changing. And the separate self wants solidity and repetition, and needs to recognize and feel safe in this fictitious world that we create around us. I don't know if any of that makes sense. I'm trying to.
No, it does. It does.
Yeah, good.
So for me, so during the pandemic, right? Of course, I didn't know if I will survive, or my wife and my son. So I'm a computer scientist. I was going too fast in my life. I wasn't stopping, right? Like a train that goes 200 miles an hour, right? And then all of a sudden, I needed to stop because there was big event in the world, and like they say here in the United States, I thought about what was important to me and what wasn't important, get rid of the stuff that wasn't important, smell the roses, like they say here in the United States, and I and music has always been very important to me, right? Like I told you, Sally, um, I don't know how to read music. I don't know how to write music, play any instrument at all, but I've been listening to music for, I don't know, 3 hours a day for the last 50 years. And I have a huge music collection. I mean, like 7,000, 8,000 CDs, vinyl, 3 stereos, different rooms. So it has always been important, all kind of music. And I was going too fast. As I said, well, I may die, so I better start doing stuff that I really like it. And that's why I opened the radios and I began doing interviews. And I noticed that from a psychological point of view, before the pandemic, I was living in the past. Why did I do the stuff that I did? Why I make the following mistake? Or living in the future where I would like to do that. I would like to do that. So, but I wasn't living in the present at all. As if I was avoiding the present, if you will. I was kind of in a way avoiding the silence. And I began looking myself in the mirror more and say, well, this is now. I mean, why? I don't know if it makes sense, but it's hard for people to, I mean, it took me a while to really concentrate and say, I need to live in the present. The past is the past, the future, I don't know if I'm going to be alive tomorrow or not, but live here in the moment. And it has been taking me a while, to say the least.
Well, sometimes it takes an extraordinary event to bring us into that state where we are so dissatisfied with our current way of experiencing life that it kind of wakes us up. And it can be an event like we've experienced in the past couple of years, this so-called pandemic, or it can be a death in the family, or you can become really ill.
Yep.
But it takes something extreme, because otherwise we're nice and easy. We're very happy, not happy, but we're very comfortable, because we've created a fortress around ourselves. We've
Absolutely.
We've created this amazingly clever way of interpreting reality that has nothing to do with reality, because
That's
reality
right.
is constantly flowing and changing. And we resist the change by saying, I want that, I don't want that, constantly trying to set our lives up to be nice and safe. We recognize everything's everything's in place, right, feel comfortable, right? But actually it's the very essence of suffering, because we keep heading towards an object that we think is going to make us happy. And when we get it, we have this brief moment. Okay, that's great, I've got it. And then you want something else. And it goes on and on. It's a constantly repeating pattern, which we call life. It's actually not necessary to look for something to make us happy. We can be happy now with whatever is happening. That's what I've discovered. And it's quite an incredible, it looks so simple when you see it, but to actually break through this automation, and relating it back to music, I can pick up, I never practice these days. I pick up the flute and something new happens, and it doesn't have structure as such. Like, for example, I've done a lot of just improvised recording recently, and I'm just playing what I'm feeling in the moment. That's it, really.
Where do you think the music come from?
Well, it's where everything comes from. It's we live in a soup of energy, and we have these amazing mind-body mechanisms which can interpret that soup, that sea of energy, into this incredibly beautiful world.
Mm.
And so when and with sound, because everything is vibration, you know, we have these sensing mechanisms. And like I'm sitting here, you can probably hear the bird song in the background. We have a lot of parrots, and it's like a symphony all around us. But when I start to express my emotion through the breath, it comes out as music, what we call music. The birds are expressing themselves now, naturally and harmoniously, just communicating. So I'm just communicating what I'm feeling through an instrument which is very clever. You know, it's got all these wonderful keys and it's designed. I mean, to begin with, flutes were just a bamboo tube with a hole in, and now we have all this incredible complexity that's sort of simplified into, you know, if you press that, it makes that note.
But perhaps we surround ourselves by things, by stuff, to avoid looking inwards and looking yourself in the mirror. That's the best way I can express. It's
totally. Avoidance. If you look at that word, avoid.
That's right.
Avoid is ignoring the emptiness. You know.
That's right. Yeah.
And the emptiness is the very thing that we are, because we are pure consciousness that contains everything.
Mm.
This is, and there is an expression I've heard, I don't know where it came from, but when you disappear as an object, facing other objects, you reappear as the solitary subject that contains everything.
Wow, that's a very good way to put it. Yeah.
Mm.
Let's go back to the beginning. Were you born like in a, I mean, you have a unique family. I mean, your brother Mike and your sister Sally, they're very well known. And were you born like in a musical family? I mean, how old were you when you perhaps began taking piano lesson or guitar music? Was music at home? Your dad playing instrument, or there were vinyl around? How you guys started, you know, learning the music?
Not a musical family at all. My grandmother used to play the piano a bit, and my father had a guitar, which he used to play. Jimmy Crack Corn and I Don't Care, that sort of stuff, you know. And no, it was definitely the 60s, you know, because everybody wanted to start a group, you know, everybody wanted to be like the Beatles or the Stones or whatever. And we just bought a guitar and, you know, set it up in the garage, and it was just like that. And also, I know from Mike, and I write about this, and he writes about this in his autobiography, is that music was a means to connect with to express emotion, because unfortunately our educational system and also parental guidance is moving towards avoiding our feelings. And so we come into this world as beautiful, open. You've seen what a baby's like. Wow, you know, everything's wow, you know. And then we get told not to, you know, don't. And so we get driven out of the body and disconnected from the feeling. And music, I think for Mike and for Sally and I, was a way of expressing feeling, because, well, none of us up until a certain age were very good at words, you know, because we didn't have much communication in the family, to be honest.
Really?
And didn't have much practice. And so I particularly withdrew so deeply into myself that I was unable to speak for a few years in communicate in the normal way with people in my teenage years.
Really?
And
So,
the flute was my saving grace, because as soon as I discovered that I could blow into a tube and express what I'm feeling,
yeah.
it all came out, and it was a wonderful release for me. And I'm
So
sure
each
it's,
one of you will go to your individual room when you arrive from the school, and then get breakfast in the morning, then go your way, and then come back at the same routine. It was difficult, like I don't know, like a family dinner, or where your mom and your dad, the three of you on the table having dinner, or no, it wasn't like that.
no, we didn't have that kind of family
Yeah,
interaction.
yeah,
Yeah, we were very alone as people in a difficult family situation, which I go into in the book quite
yeah,
deeply.
yep.
And I know Mike used to listen to music all the time, a bit like you, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. I will get along with you, brother. Yeah,
Yeah, he was always in his room. He had all his albums. He had the best sound system he could afford at the time. Headphones, at night. When he got his guitar, he was teaching himself all these instrumentals. He used to have long instrumentals that he used to work out.
yeah.
And I think,
But the common thing was music, right? I mean, Mike could have gone to his room, or Sally to her room, and read books or write poetry, whatever. But the three of you pick music as a way
yeah, I was
as an
more,
escape,
yeah.
if you will, right? So,
Well, I remember my sister's room was always blaring out music, songs, from the top 10 and all that. I was a bit of a late developer. I mean, my first real dive into music, although I used to listen to all the music of the early 60s, was when Mike and I developed a band called Barefoot.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and we used to just we were not good as a band because we were both exploring. I mean, Mike was quite a good guitarist, but I mean, I had no idea really. So we used to play very heavy rock, and we were quite popular in some places, like universities. We used to play, and
Yeah.
I remember we used to drive down to places like the Zoom Club in Frankfurt in our transit van, and it was fun. But I mean, we all realized that it was not going to take us anywhere. Yeah.
Well, eventually the three of you became famous.
It's amazing, isn't it? We all went our separate ways, and we all found our way in the music. Well, yeah, very, very blessed, I feel.
Yeah. You left school. I read somewhere that you left school, I think when you were 16, to travel around the world, and as a roadie, support a certain band. Feel free to.
Yeah, I left school. I kept running away from school because they sent me to boarding school when I was 12, and I hated it, absolutely hated it. So I kept running away. Eventually they got the message, and they let me go to the local technical college, where I didn't do any work. I just used to play table tennis in the common room and chat up girls. I wasn't interested in education at all.
Yeah. It seems something happens similar to me as well. I was a very bad student. I was kind of chasing girls and drinking beer, and I wanted to listen to music. And at the time in Latin America, there were not going any bands. I was going crazy. And then 36 years later, I have done well academically. I have changed my life a lot, and I've been able to see, I don't know, close to 40 bands a year here, and I have done well. So I'm very fortunate, I think. And music is magic to me. I don't know. I had never been able to describe it, but I put my headphone, I drink a beer or whatever, and I travel with music. It takes me places. And it doesn't have to be like a soft music like yours. I can be listening to, you know, the Tubular Bells or Pink Floyd or Led Zeppelin or Frank Zappa, whatever.
Yeah.
And it takes me places. It's a beautiful thing, man. So
Yeah. Yeah. I was recently on a long haul flight, and I was listening to Eric Clapton's autobiography.
yeah.
And I was very surprised how difficult he found things until he was in his 50s. he really struggled. So it was it's an enormous lesson when you see that in people who are so talented and so successful. They have everything at their fingertips, you know, in terms of what everybody thinks will make you happy. You know, you've just got everything, but you're miserable. And when you see that happening, you begin to question, well, maybe if I had that, maybe you just put this little question in a spanner in the works, because that automation that constantly wants, you know, going back 3,000 years to the Buddha, who said this to begin with, you know, and all the great teachers have always said this. You know, the craving and aversion is the essence of suffering. Wanting something and not wanting something. And there's been a lot of casualties in the music world. You know, Jimi Hendrix. You know, all those people that didn't make it because they found themselves in a world where they were idolized. They had everything, but it didn't do it. This is the key to awakening. Is you have to tread the path to discover that the path leads back to the beginning, where everything is here that you want, because we're being fed this smorgasbord of wonderful stuff all the time, every moment, and we're just not present to take it in. Because we're constantly wanting something, or regretting, or, you know, resisting. And, you know, the Dalai Lama's bottom line is, you know, acceptance is the key to peace. Not wanting to change things all the time, not wanting things to be different. And the pandemic was an amazing lesson for so many people, because you didn't have a choice. You had to be where you are. You know, you got locked up. How much more of a message do you need to say, well, okay, I've got to make the best of what I've got around me here? So people started working in their gardens. So many people I know have created amazing vegetable gardens, planted trees, you know, done things that they wouldn't normally do, because they were so busy planning and you know, all that sort of stuff. So I think it's been a very positive thing in the sense of awakening a lot of people to go beyond the normality, the mechanical way of life that is so common.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So you learn how to play your instrument kind of on your own? You didn't have any formal training?
No, I just picked it up when I was on a Greek island when I was 19. Yeah, I was just backpacking around, looking for something. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew that what I had was not enough. And so I was on a journey towards something. It's I didn't know what I was looking for.
Yeah,
I think that's a very healthy thing to do for young people, actually, just to throw up your arms and put a backpack on and go out into the world and see what happens.
Yeah, it's you need to be, I think, risky and adventurous in life to accomplish anything, I suppose, right? If you stand still, or your parents tell you what to do, you will perhaps not discover yourself. Perhaps you will not follow your path.
Yeah.
And you will do what people tell you, what the way that you should live your lives, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because, like they say in Zen, if the cup is full, there's no room for anything new.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think your dad was a medical doctor. So I kind of, when I began doing research on your life, and it was surprised that usually medical doctor, they put a lot of pressure to schooling is the only way to make it. You need to have very good grades and try and apply to a very good university and find a girl, get married, and so on and so forth, as opposed to your 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 life and your brother's life, where they were unstructured. You do whatever they wanted to do, and they did okay. Just follow a different path, I suppose, right?
Well, the lucky thing for us was, and it was a very sad situation actually, but it was lucky for us that the efforts to get us educated were made when our parents were actually in a reasonably harmonious state. But when everything fell apart for them, they didn't have time for us, and so they didn't really care what we did anymore. So we were free from quite an early age to explore without the pressure, because their lives didn't work. It was pretty obvious that it wasn't working for them. So how can they give us advice?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, to raise a kid. I mean, my son is 18, and I want for him to be happy and find their own way of life, and then grow with mistake and successes, and be happy. And as opposed to me telling him, "Hey, you need to do this, you need to do that," and so support that. It's my parents were like that. No, schooling is the only way. You need to do. Forget about music. You listen to a lot of music that will not make you any money. You will not be able to go to a good school if And I was in many ways a rebel, and because I was a rebel, I did okay in my life. I grew up differently, or I was like a late bloomer, if you will, and then I did all right in my life. But I struggle a lot between the ages of, I don't know, 18 or 20 or 21 until I came here to the United States. So, but if it hasn't been for that experiences, I wouldn't be where I am right now.
Exactly. And so as parents, we have a responsibility to let our children go, in a sense, which is I mean, I have 5 children, and they've all found their way in the world, because they're all grown up now, and somehow they found their way. And I didn't really give them a lot of advice, to be honest. There was no pressure coming from me anyway, because I went through that.
That's right.
And I was given the pressure, and I felt like I was being put in prison.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So I didn't do that to my children. And they found their way. They're all doing things that they wanted to do, and I'm very happy for them. So I've just finished doing the rounds. Actually, I went to England to see my son, who's got 2 young girls, and my daughter, she's got 3 boys. Spent some time with them.
Yeah.
Then we just went down to Sydney to see my other daughter, who's working with, she writes code for airline companies. She's found, her joy in that. And my other daughter has gone back to living off the land in Tasmania. She has a family with 2 beautiful, a boy and a girl, and they bought a piece of land and they just put a container on it, and they're just literally doing things from the ground up. And they didn't have any idea what to do, but they're learning as they go. So they're growing their own stuff. They're gradually putting infrastructure in place, living in the woodlands, very small community. And we went to stay down there. And they're all so different. And if we try to make our children the same, I mean, we're just going to get, it's like in music, when I first started working with films and television, I was given access to orchestras. You know, the BBC Northern Singers. You know, I could say I want some singers. I want some, you know, I want a string quartet. But at a certain point, when all the electronic keyboards came in, everybody set up their home studios and was sending in demos to all the producers and the BBC or whatever. They said, oh, well, we can save a lot of money by doing this electronically. So, yeah, and they reduced the budget on all the music, and I found myself having to set up my own home studio and learn how to do all the sort of sampling and stuff, which I didn't really want to do because I was very happy working with real musicians. And but I was earning a living. I had a young family, and I've just had to duck and weave and adapt to the changes as a musician. But I was very, very lucky to have experienced the heyday of music. You know, when we used to get pre-sales, I used to get pre-sales of you know, 40,000 CDs on a release. Now that is unheard of today. You just don't hear of it anymore, except if you're, you know, if you're a real big star. Yeah. It just doesn't happen. It's all this streaming, and we have to adapt in a sense to live in this world, but to a certain extent, that knowledge that we need in order to function needs to be operating in the background. Whereas what tends to happen, which creates, again, this mistaken identity, is that the identity is formed around belief systems and knowledge, and we think that's what we are. I mean, it's a very, very huge subject, this, because it's as complex as you make it, but it all boils down to the simplicity of letting go of all that knowledge, letting go of all your belief systems, emptying out, and allowing that to function, because I'm still capable of functioning. You know, I can still do all my electronics and computer stuff, servicing my instruments, you know, all that's, and writing a book, you know, it's all there, but I know that that's not who I am. It's almost like an operating system that is functioning through me, rather than I am not that.
But both are, I would argue that both are important. There's nothing wrong, right? You know, finding who you are in this world, and at the same time, you know, creating music, you release the book, you're doing that external stuff. That, I think, wouldn't you agree that that's part of you as well, right?
Absolutely. No. I mean, it's not part of me, but it's what's happening through me. You know, we're all unique in the way that we are different sort of language I use these days, are used by the universe, if you like.
Yeah.
And I see openness as the most powerful thing, because unless there is openness here, nothing new can flow through there, because I'm just taking from the past and projecting onto the future. If I think that's all I can do. So to be completely empty and allow that all the memories and the knowledge to be there in the background as a skill, you know. We don't beat our hearts, we don't run our blood supply, you know, we actually don't think, but we think that we think. So we create a thinker. Yeah. And I'm the thinker. I'm in here running the show. So it's actually a fictitious character. There's nobody in here running the show. There isn't. What's running the show is something completely and totally mysterious. which I'm happy to let it be mysterious, because it's such a powerful force. And how can, we think we're so clever, sending rockets around the space and colliding with asteroids, but actually try running a leaf. Try organizing the bodily system. You can't. It's being run by something which is infinitely more knowledgeable and powerful than anything that we humans can come up with. Because all we can come up with is what's in the hard drive, the memory. Because memory is experience that is stored, but that experience is coming from the present moment. We're just taking snapshots of the present moment. There's a different way of living where you can just be empty and allow everything to flow through.
Well, this is a very good way to explain that. You have done a lot of, well, I think you have done over 50 albums or so, and films and TV production, the BBC, and you have done a lot of very good stuff. And when you were 16, when you left home, and you ever thought that your life will turn out to be that way? Or
no, I mean, I'm writing in my book how I struggled with the desperately trying to find a niche, because I had this enormously successful brother who was sort of suddenly taken up by the universe and supported in an enormous way. And I felt that I wasn't for some time. And the pivotal stuff started to happen for me when I gave up trying to be a musician. And this is another lesson that we can learn, that the trying to achieve something sometimes is detrimental to the actual result. Because when you give up, you're saying, okay, I accept things as they are. And then, of course, there is room for something new to come in. But as if I've got to have this, I've got to have that. I want that. I want that. I want to be like him. I want to be like her. I'm coming from a position of complete, I don't have it. I lack it. So you're telling the universe, I don't have it. And the universe is always agreeing with you. No, you don't. That's true. Yeah. Okay. That's it. That's the truth. So if I let go of all that and say, oh, okay, I give up. Some of the liquid drains out of the cup. Maybe something new can come in. And that was what happened to me. I tell the story. I hope you don't mind me showing my book here. This is
of course, yeah.
My autobiography.
That's right. Yeah.
476 pages of stories. And I decided, well, I'm going to give it one last shot. I'm going to rent a cottage in Wales, in some remote part, and I'm going to take a 4-track and a 2-track and a few instruments with me. I'm going to see if I can write something. And I spent a winter, very lonely, actually, I was, in a cottage in Wales. And I came up with a piece of music, very, which I still have somewhere. I can send it to you if you like, if you're interested. The original demo.
Yeah, I would love to, yeah.
And it was called Spiral. Because I've always been interested in geometry, mathematics, because I see it as very closely related to music, actually. And it was based on a chord progression that rose and descended at the same time. A bit like a spiral. You go up octaves, in every time you turn a circle, you're going up in an octave. And in between, in the Western scale, we have the chromatic scale. So you've got A, you're going all the way up through the chromatic scale, and you come to A. At the same point above, when the circle has turned again and risen, it's double the rate of vibration. And that's what we call an octave. So it's dun, da, that's an octave. And I was fascinated by all this, and it was a very mechanical piece, but it had all the angst I was feeling. It had all the terrible lack. I put it all into the music, and I felt better afterwards. So I made 20 cassettes. It was just well before the time of CDs and all that.
That's right, yeah.
And I sent them off to various record companies, film companies, TV, whoever I could find in the phone book, basically.
That's right.
And then I waited. I thought, oh, right, okay, I'll see what happens. Nothing happened. Nothing. For 3 months, I was expecting some sort of response. And then the only positive response I got was from Richard Branson.
Wow.
He got a copy. Because I was very good friends with Richard in those days.
Really?
Yeah, I used to stay at his house, and we used to go fishing and stuff. And he said, "Oh, I like this. That sounds interesting. I'll play it to Simon Draper, who was then running the A&R department at the new Virgin offices in Portobello Road, in Vernon Yard."
That's right.
And Simon said, "Oh, this is good. I like this." So they called me in, and they said, "Okay, we'd love to do something with this. The only drawback is that we want you to do a family album with Mike and Sally." It would have been wonderful, and I was very excited about that. I got a from Mike immediately, which is understandable. He was already on a wave of his own. He didn't want to do that, so it didn't happen. So I gave up, basically, and I went back to my island where I'd originally discovered the flute, because I was living on an island doing odd jobs for people, whitewashing walls, house sitting for people, because the house was full of houses that people only used for holidays. So I used to live in their houses while they were away and water the gardens, and it was a nice life, beautiful life, actually.
Good for you, man.
Yeah. And so I went back there, and I was there for several weeks, and there was no internet in those days. Blessed times, actually. And I used to get any mail used to come to the post office, and it was always addressed to Post Restant, Hydra, Greece, Terry Oldfield, or whatever. So I went down there to check my mail one day, and there was a telegram, and it was from a producer at the BBC who had come across my cassette lying on somebody's desk and had played it. And he was working on a series called Great Railway Journeys of the World.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And he said, "This is perfect for my my series. Would you be interested in doing that?" And I said, okay. Yeah. So I went back to London, borrowed some money for the flight, and he met me and we talked about it. And I said, "Look, I have no experience doing this sort of work." He said, "No, I'll come down. I'll come into the studio with you, and we'll work it out." So he was my guardian angel. He was incredible. Jerry Troiner, his name was.
Yeah.
And so I took whatever instruments I could amass, because in those days, we couldn't afford session musicians. And he was working on a tight budget for this series, and somehow we managed to put it together. And the series was enormously successful. And one thing led to another, and I started working on other things, and that was the beginning of my career. But it was launched at that cottage in a remote part of Wales in the winter, when I had given up, or when I had one last shot at it, and then I gave up, and then it all started. And I became enormously successful at that. Everybody wanted me to write. I experienced suddenly oh wow, all the
Yeah.
things suddenly started to effortlessly drop into my lap. And then even then, the way I got into doing albums was a painter, an artist called John Hitchens started recording my music off the TV. And he was using it for inspirational background music for his work. And he was quite a well-known artist. And he wrote to me asking if I would put together a cassette for him. And he offered to pay me quite a large amount of money, actually, so I did it. And a few months later, I got a letter from a record company, New World Music, which was just starting up. And they offered me a deal. So, and I thought, okay, I'll do that. I didn't expect anything. And then again, 3 months later, I got my royalty statement, 80,000 CDs, cassettes sold, and that just was so effortless that I was given this amazing support. And I see that support as coming as a direct response to my acceptance of my failure, if you like, not failure, but acceptance of, okay, I'll just go with whatever happens. I'm going to stop trying to be a musician. I'll just play my flute if I feel like it. And in came the means to do everything I'd wanted to do.
Your brother Mike, on the other hand, success came so fast, so early in his life that drove him crazy. I suppose. Well, I know the story, but if you became famous so in your life that in a way the first interview is okay, the first deal is good, the money is good, but eventually, you get emails and email didn't exist and stuff, but phone call and faxes and then you become an introvert. Say, man, I'm glad that I did that, the tubular bells thing, but I'm being bombarded. I need to escape to an island where no phones, no fax machines, and escape in a way, right? That a fair way to put it. And
absolutely, Mike suffered terribly. He just couldn't handle it.
Dealing with that, yeah.
He couldn't. In fact, Virgin took me on the payroll as his go between Virgin and him, because
Really,
Richard couldn't get through to Mike.
Yeah,
he just couldn't, and so I was given a company car and a salary, and I was the go between for quite some time, and I used to answer the phone and do all Mike's liaison, and even drive him around, actually, if he had to go somewhere, because he was in such a state. He openly writes about this, so I can speak about it quite openly myself.
Yeah.
And it happens to a lot of people who get catapulted to fame. I think they get it's too much. It's too much. He couldn't deal with it.
And in many ways, if you, I don't know, became famous, like, I don't know, like the Led Zeppelin guys or the Pink Floyd guy, the Genesis guy, in many ways changes your value system, because you have access to women. If you're married, you're in trouble, to drugs, to the easy life, and people do stuff for you, and you start losing your value system, if you will, right?
You get. I mean, it's enormously big incentive for the ego to get quite big.
Yeah,
because you're being given everything you want, and you have this sense of power that comes in, and unless you have the balance of the inner inquiry, actually, because the most powerful question we can ask ourselves is, who am I? Because that really is something that, if we can live with that question, it takes the wind out of the sails of the egomaniac, that wants to sort of, control everything and know everything. And people will die to defend their belief systems, and you can see how that's happened in history with wars fought over the most ridiculous things, the conflict between belief systems, different belief systems. Absolutely. It's really much more healthy not to have any belief systems, to be honest.
What do you think that happened after we cross over and sort of died, quote unquote? Where do we go? Where do we come from? Where do we go after this experience in life?
I don't know, basically, but I have a feeling that whatever we believe will happen. And that's, I mean, I can't say for sure, but I'm just saying that I have a feeling that because all this, the whole universe is this is a picture I keep next to my.
Yep.
This is Vishnu in Hindu mythology, and and Vishnu is dreaming the world. Yeah. So I like the Hindu mythology because it sort of has, it doesn't just have the one idea. It's got all these symbols which relate to different aspects of what's happening. And so it's possible that when we die, some of us don't realize we're dead even for some time. And not because I don't think consciousness, consciousness has to be eternal. It's not, because it's not dependent on the brain. I mean, these bodies, I mean, if you use the simple inquiry of a child, am I my hand? No, I'm not my hand, because if I cut it off, I'm still here. Take away the arm, I'm still here. You can take away most of the limbs and you're still there. It's the consciousness that is flowing through this body. It's not, there's nobody in here. That character that we create based on beliefs, stories,
but
is not here.
But where consciousness come from? I mean, when you are born, I don't know, consciousness coming to you. I don't know how that works, but I have my own way of thinking about that. But where does consciousness reside as far?
Well, we're trying to look at it through the analytical mind.
Yeah.
And this particular mind is designed to operate in a world of polarity, which is this world. The yin yang, all that sort of stuff. The world of opposites. And so, if you try and look at something infinite, which consciousness is infinite, it's infinite consciousness, which means it doesn't exist in the world of time. Now, we live in this world using time with memory and projection.
Yep.
That seems to be how we operate. But if we try to use this analytical mind to understand what infinity is, it's not going to happen. So we have to be able to accept that there is a mystery. That I don't know is a very powerful statement. And the need to know comes from the separate analytical mind that has to be solving problems all the time. Because it's no, this could be an Encyclopedia Britannica. It can get as complicated as you like. But ultimately, if we can reach the point where we let go of needing to know, we're able to function much more happily and joyfully in this world.
I have an inquisitive mind, so I ask myself that kind of question. I mean, Where's
that's the,
God? Where we came from? What happened after we
yeah,
pass away? It's life after life,
yeah, exactly. Well,
My parents died some years ago. I would like to see them in one way or
well,
another. I don't know.
it's all, everything is possible, because this is a world where what we believe happens.
So we can create our own reality. Just that's what I'm saying.
Well, not in the sense of doing it, but if you take the example of giving up,
Yeah.
everything is reflected out there from within. So if I say I don't have enough money, then I don't have enough money. It's true. And I think it was some businessman, maybe Henry Ford or something, said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
That's powerful. It's a very powerful statement. I know exactly what you're saying.
It is. And that's the element of control we have, but it's not real control, you see, because you have to be authentically giving up. You can't say, right, what I've got to do in order to get that is to give up. You can't do it that way. It's got to be a complete surrender. And that's that means you enter into the being of the surrender. You are being the surrender. You're not saying, oh, well, I'm using this as a technique. I'll use the surrender technique in order to get more money. No, it doesn't work like that. That's why all these books like The Secret and all that, they don't ring true with me, because that's wanting a Ferrari. You know, it's like it's too specific. You know, you can walk the path. You know, try to be a musician. I'm going back to my experience. I've got to do everything I can think of to be successful. You know, do everything I can think of, and then it doesn't happen. And so I think, okay, I've given it my best shot. Let's see what happens. I give up. I accept the situation that it's not happening. It's a surrender to being in a flow of change, basically. I try to write. That's why my book's so thick, you know, because I tried to go into all sorts of different angles of.
That's right. So that's the question next. What did you decide to write the book? I mean,
sorry,
why did you decide to write a book? You didn't have a choice. You knew that you need to write the book. The book came to you, and you thought, well, I have the time. I should do it. Or what was the motivation of the book?
There again, you know, thank you to the pandemic. Suddenly, I was given the freedom to have more time. I'm not zooming around all over Europe doing concerts.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people found that they suddenly had time to do stuff. And I don't sit in front of Netflix, and I don't drink. So I don't have those escape routes in operation. So I'm very happy sitting on a bench in the garden. In fact, we have several different benches that scattered around our garden, where you can get different angles on things. And I'm very happy just sitting on a bench and listening to birds. But I got moved to write the book, and I just felt, like I'll just start, because the first thing is to actually begin. And that's probably the most difficult thing, because the mind says, oh no, it's so difficult writing a book. Oh no, oh gosh, it's so complicated. But actually, if you just write the first paragraph, one thing leads to the next. And the way I began was to go back to my very first memory, which was my sister Sally and I in a frosty garden collecting spider webs. We used to bend these little twigs around and collect a spider web. Yeah. And that triggered off 476 pages.
Wow.
Yeah.
One after the other.
Yeah.
Are you happy in your life? If you look back in your life, are you happy with your life, with what you have accomplished, the music, the book, and your family and
well, it couldn't have been any other way, but it was difficult at times, very difficult. And I was struggling, a lot of the time. It's not easy when you get this mountain of work coming in, and the human body can only handle so much. And after a while, I felt like a sponge that was being wrung dry. I was being asked to write music, and there wasn't any music there to write. When you're taking on film music, you have to please the team. You got the director, the producer, the editors, and you've got to come up with something that everybody likes, not just me. I'm not free like I am with just doing albums, which is just my music. It's coming through me. I have to write to order, and I found that very, very difficult. So in my 40s, although I had everything, plenty of money and nice house, and I got into a state where I was getting quite depressed, even with all this happening around me. I couldn't handle it again. So I got a taste of what Mike must have gone through.
Absolutely, yeah, that was. Yeah.
I got a taste. Yeah.
That's why you ended up moving to Australia, or no?
Yeah, I moved to Australia in 2001, when I was, just over it, completely over it, and just wanted a complete change. And I just found we had made several trips to Australia before. We drove around Australia in a big Winnebago, and I just found the space so big, and I still experience it like that. There's so few people compared to, you arrive at Heathrow Airport and you get into your hire car, and then you join the queues, basically. And it's not like that here, not yet, anyway.
Yeah. What do you know about Carlos Castaneda? How you encountered him, how you came across his writing and
it was just a book that was around. His books were around in the 60s, 70s, when I was first beginning to take an interest in who am I, really deeply, and getting interested in philosophy and Zen and Buddhism and yoga and all that sort of stuff. And also taking psychedelics. I took LSD and mescaline, not a lot, but I had the experience. And in his books, Carlos is the apprentice, and Don Juan is the teacher.
Yep.
And he starts off by giving him mescaline, introducing him to mescalito, they call it, because he says that Carlos is so caught up in his head in the mechanics and the automation that he needed a hand grenade in there to blow it all apart, to stop the looping mechanisms that were going around.
Yeah.
And but after a while, he stopped giving him any kind of drugs because they'd done their job. And I think for a lot of us in the 60s and 70s, it was quite a positive thing, because it did that. It stopped the normality. The looping mechanisms. It put a spanner in there, and you think, it just stopped it, just to give that brief window of vision of something that was not normal. And once you've had that experience, I don't recommend that it gets repeated too often, because I think it does damage. but it's important if you really want to evolve as an awake human being, that we need to get out of this humdrum, constant automated existence. That, to be honest, I have very few friends who I can talk to on this level, actually, like we're talking now. I have very few. There's not a lot of people about who really are open enough. So thank you for this conversation.
No, thank you. I mean, for me, those are, like I told Sally, more than interviews are conversation among two people, three people that like topics that are in music, books, where all the stuff you say, resonate a lot with me. I never done any LSD, or I drink beer, stuff like that, but I'm afraid that I couldn't try. I didn't want to try. I don't want to try because I may get addicted. I read somewhere that I think your brother a couple of times got like a bad trip. I don't know what that means, but it's kind of crazy. Are you familiar with the stuff that they do in? I think they do in Mexico and Colombia and Peru, ayahuasca. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
I've never done it. No, and I'm not tempted to do anything like that. And I haven't done anything, nothing since I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
And also, when I was a roadie, I used to smoke a lot of dope, even driving all around Europe in big 3-ton trucks, stoned out of my head.
Yeah.
I was lucky to survive,
lucky to survive. I don't know to which extent you need to try things to get out of the looping system. Or I don't know, maybe, for example, you go with your wife to India very often, right? I never been in India for many reasons, one way or another. I don't kind of have an interest in going to India. I don't one way or another, it's not appealing to me. I go to London often to see shows. I'm not appealing to go to India. I don't have one way or another what I think good or bad about India, but I don't need to go places or do it or take drugs to go inside myself. I can look myself in the mirror. I don't have to meditate or do yoga to see that I'm a good husband to my wife. I'm a good dad to my son. I'm paying the bills on time. I grew up in a Catholic family, but I grew up out of Catholicism. In Latin America, everybody's Catholic. So I grew up in a Catholic family. My mom was very religious, very, very, very religious. I went to a private school like you with the Jesuit, but I don't need to do things to go inside myself. I don't need to do yoga or go to India to experience myself and my inner self, or whatever that means.
Well, we're all different.
Yeah,
we're all different, Claudio, because I have explored everything in my life, from the early drugs to the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, all that sort of stuff. And I've traveled enormously, but what I've come to is a point where I don't do any practices anymore. I don't do any practice. I've stopped searching, and that the end of the search seemed to happen when I didn't find anything. You see, that's the hard part to accept. It's that point where the end of the search is when you give up because there's nothing out there that does it. And then you find yourself at the very start of the journey, the searching, in the place where the magic that you sought is, which is in the present moment. Again, it's not necessary to search, and you don't have to do anything. You are already in the place where happiness lies, which is right here, right now. You can ask.
Happiness is living in the present. Anyway, you don't have to go places or buy more stuff or get a new car or go into social media and do stupid stuff or be on the phone checking who call you, send you a text.
You've got it. That's the bottom line.
No.
Complete bottom line with everything is that there's nothing you need to do to be happy. There's nothing you need to get to be happy. Happiness is who we are. We're already in that place of happiness. But happiness is accepting things as they are. That doesn't mean to say that if something happens, you don't respond. You know, the body will do what it does.
Yeah.
You know, it will act to survive, because the whole mechanism of survival is the memory, the stored experience. You know, you take your hand out of the flame as soon as it gets hot.
Yeah.
You know, you respond. If something comes towards your eye, you go, you know, it happens by itself. You know, if we can allow that wonderful mechanism of survival, which is built in, which is reaction to a stimulus based upon past experience. In other words, constantly referring to the past, how to survive. So let it look after us. It's designed to look after us. The whole memory system is designed to look after us. It's not who we are. And that's the big mistake, and that's what leads to suffering, is the identification in that whole mechanism of survival, which is thought. Thought is not necessary. We can actually live in a world not thinking. I know it's a difficult one, but it is possible.
Are you happy in your life?
I'm happy. Yes, I'm happy. Definitely happy. And the more I can let go of wanting anything to be different to the way it is, the happier I get. And we have to also include in that the awareness of death. Death is really important. And in the Castaneda books, one of the biggest things, the most useful things that Don Juan said to his apprentice was, always carry death as your advisor. So you carry death. You're not afraid of death, because death is part of life. You see all the leaves dropping, you see everything is coming into existence and fading away. Just go to Google and look at the worldometer. You'll see the people being born and the people dying. You can see the numbers.
Yeah,
they're coming and going like that. Like in every second, there's millions, there's thousands coming and going in this planet. And that's the essence of life. And so if we can really look at death, really stare it straight in the face, that's the bottom line fear that we all have, you see. So the ending is so inevitable, huge inevitability of death. You can't avoid it, and you never know when it's going to happen.
Do you believe in lucid dreams and stuff like that?
I write all about that in my book.
Okay.
Probably a whole chapter.
All
I
right.
went through.
I have not read the book. That's why.
Well, you need to read the book.
I need to read the book.
I had a huge number of lucid dreams and out-of-body experiences.
Yeah.
And one of my songs, which is one of the most successful songs on the internet, actually, is called Dreamer.
Yeah.
And if you look that one up, that was written during a period of lucid dreaming, when I kept waking up in my dreams. My God, it's incredible stuff happening. And I was flying, I was doing all sorts of stuff. And so I had this amazingly real experience of being out of the body. So that's helped me a lot.
Yeah.
And it just happened. I just want to get a book.
Yeah.
I used to get these just as I was dropping off to sleep, I used to get this vibration happening in my body, and it used to scare the living daylights out of me because it felt like my body was, I thought there was something wrong. And I came across this guy, Robert Monroe.
Yeah, the Monroe Institute. Yeah, I know.
Oh, you know. Okay. So
they are 2 hours from here in Virginia. They offer a lot of courses. I know. I didn't know, since I have not read your book. I didn't know that you knew that kind of stuff, but I have done a lot of research in this stuff. And
okay, well, that was my saving grace, because I came across his first book in which he went through this terrible thing of getting this vibration and was terrified and went to see psychiatrists and I was doing the same, thinking, oh my God, I'm a brain tumor. And eventually I was on a ferry from Italy to Greece, and I was lying in the top bunk in a cabin, and this vibration came on, and I'd already read Robert's book, and his breakthrough came, and he let it happen. He just allowed it, and so I allowed it, and I found myself sitting on the floor, looking up at the bunk. And that freaked me out completely.
Of course,
to begin with. But I had that experience, and gradually, I think it started to happen more and more. And so I developed this confidence that I'm not my body. It was living proof, because I was having the actual experience, you see. And I think that was another wonderful gift I got. That helped me to disentangle from this insidious identification with this survival mechanism, which we call thinking. I was stuck in my head to such a degree that I couldn't function. And now I know what true functioning is letting go.
I don't know if you're familiar with, there's a professor that, an author that sometime he and his wife end up teaching classes at the Monroe Institute. His name is William Bullman. Bullman, or I think I will send you the link later on it. He explained exactly what you're saying very, very well in the book about the vibration that he went through when he was going out of body, and that caused me a lot of difficulties in my life growing up, because as I said before, I went to study with the Jesuits. I grew up in a Catholic family. My mom was very Catholic, and so they mold me and brainwash me in a certain way. And then when I developed understand the world, I became 19 years old and began questioning stuff. And I thought, well, if God exists and God make me smart and I want to go to university, I need to start doing some thinking on my own. That created a lot of conflict in my life, because I know I began thinking about what's happened after we die, lucid dreaming, consciousness, a lot of stuff that the Catholic Church was growing out. I have the opposite. So began questioning myself a lot and my belief, and it caused me a lot of troubles in my life, because I needed to rearrange my form of thinking. And maybe the Catholic Church brainwashed me into thinking like that, but in reality the world's like this. And I began experiencing consciousness and trying to understand in the world what happened after we die and so forth. And I have been able to communicate with my dad. My dad passed away and some years ago, and the world is a lot more complicated than this, a physical body. That's what, like a half an hour ago, I didn't know that you knew the stuff. And I say, we die, quote unquote. In reality, we are energy having a human experience in many ways. So
exactly. Yeah.
That's the best way.
Consciousness,
yeah, the way. I need to give me 1 minute. I need to get the Richard. No, we have 42%. And I think your wife and yourself are going to be doing some online classes. Is that correct? And you're going to India soon?
Well, we do stuff here at our place. We have a we call it a retreat center. Yeah, Mangalam we call it. And yeah, we're going to pool our resources, and because my wife's Sarah, she teaches yoga, she teaches stress management, she's a naturopath. You know, we have people coming and going here all the time.
Yeah.
But we were thinking of putting together a 6-month course, which was like weekly and some online stuff, just to try and attract the people who are actually ready to see through the veil, you know, because there's a lot of people are, you probably get this most of the time, is when you talk to people, you can only talk on a certain level.
That's right.
As soon as you go a little bit deeper, they don't understand what you're saying, because it's just there's not an openness there, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying there are different stages of evolution or awakening. Yeah, and I've been there. I mean, I've been as asleep as anyone in life, you know. So I can understand.
Yeah, some people are happy thinking the world like this and look like a horse, right? Looking forward, right?
Yeah.
You know, in front of a carriage. But other people are more inquisitive, or things happen to them, whatever that may be, that, well, maybe the world's like this, not like this. And you have two choices, right? You can either start thinking on your own and doing some research, doing online, reading books, experiencing and stuff, or you can close yourself, say, no, all the that's the Monroe guy and the lucid dream, they're hallucination. That's stupidity. I need to go to church every Sunday and believe what the Catholic Church or whatever religion you believe in is. And people, but if you're open, I mean, you need to be receptive to that kind of stuff. I think that all the experience must happen to a lot of people. Some people are tuned in and people are receptive, and other people are not receptive. They don't care. Hey, when we die, we die, and you know that's what it is. But it's foolish I think it's foolish to think that way. As human being, whether God exists or not, you know, we have consciousness, and we can question and discover in many ways who we are, and you know, why we're born in a particular family and what happened after we cross over. I don't know if you're familiar with Michael Newton at the Newton Institute. Yeah, I will send you the link, but he teaches a lot of courses. He's then about doing, you know, in between life and then go to a previous life and crossing over, and whether we pick our parents or not, and you know, it's very, very interesting stuff. And I think that's the way the world is, not what the Catholic Church told me what the world was. So many ways, and music, like I say at the beginning, has given me a lot of satisfaction. So it's I'm happy to be open to new experiences. I'm happy that I was born in this world, and I you know, try to do the right thing in life, whatever that means to people, you know. So
yeah, to maintain contact with our integrity and authenticity, because authentic people who are in their own flow, in other words, reflecting the authentic view of the universe, is very rare, really. And we need more and more people to.
People, do you think people are afraid to look inside themselves?
Of course, yeah, because there's no room for the ego in the present moment. You see, it's emptiness, because it looks like emptiness. because it's out of time. It's not attached to outcomes. It's not trying to achieve anything.
But that exactly is what make us human beings. Looking in the mirror. Easy for me to say because I was like that before. Looking in the mirror, that's a gift. Looking inside in yourself.
But this is the mirror here.
Yeah.
Everything out here is a reflection of what lies within. So we are already looking in the mirror. If we could just stay with the current flow of creation, which is only happening now. As soon as we go internalized with projecting into the future and going back into the past, we're not present. And the present is the mirror of creation.
Let me pause because I need to get the power recharge. Give me 1 minute. Let me. How we doing on time, Terry?
Well, we've been talking for an hour and a half.
I can talk to you for 3 days straight. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, just a bit more, a little
yeah.
more.
What? So now for going back to music, are you happy with the music you have written and the music that have come to you, or are you chasing a particular thing that I'm not done with music. I want to do the next piece.
No, I just before I went over to Europe recently, I recorded 3 tracks.
Yeah.
And it was a kind of reflection of the feeling of the pandemic, all the fear and all the stuff that was coming out in the media, and I had an idea to call the album Ring of Shadows. And in these tracks, what I'm doing is what I seem to be doing is taking in all this darkness, the fears and everything, and not rejecting anything, just taking in all the news, all the opinions, all the judgments, all the pressures from governments and everything, and allowing it to be processed, and then expressing that in music. So I've taken some recordings off the internet of people speaking, like, things that people would recognize as, people who keep coming on the news or talking about this or talking about that, Anthony Fauci, that sort of thing, and just snippets, nothing that really is supposed to mean anything, just think little snippets of conversation, and then the music plays over the top with this background of sound effects. And I may finish that, I don't know. I'm not desperate to do anything at the moment, so I'm not recording at the moment, but I did have that period of doing 3 tracks, which had that element in it.
Can you, all the stuff we have talked about, can you, it's easy for you to communicate with other people at the level that we have communicated, or with your brother, with your brother, with your sister, without your friends, or they find you kind of way up there? I cannot, whatever Terry's saying now to me, Claudio, on the book, doesn't resonate. You're daydreaming, you're doing drugs, or you're doing stuff that.
Yeah, well, that's the norm. But Soraya and I, we're totally on the same page, which is an enormous blessing, a wonderful luxury to have a partner with whom you completely at one with. And it seems to be incredibly rare, because we have people coming and going all the time, and most people are in stress.
Yeah.
And Soraya deals with people who are quite damaged quite a lot, you know, and I have one or two friends. That's what I'm saying. You can probably count on one hand people that I can really talk to on a deep level where they actually understand what you're saying, because the interpretive mind is so clever. Do you remember, you heard of Krishnamurti?
Yeah.
An Indian teacher. He spent his whole life talking, trying to get through to people, you know, but he used to talk to thousands at Carnegie Hall, all over the world. And one of the most common things he used to say to people is, "You are too clever. You can't see this because you're too clever." And when you're identified in the thinking mind, you've got these belief systems, things that have been looping. And so the recognition is so powerful to keep things as they are, you know, as you believe them to be, that there's no ears to hear, there's no eyes to see. It's just an automation, which is sad, and that's really that's the world of suffering. But
because it's a lot easier to live in denial.
Yeah, well, it's not easy.
Well, you sometimes you don't know any better. You have protective mechanisms out your head that you keep on going like that. You don't want to look sideways. You know, it's
a bit like a robot. You know, you're constantly repeating experience. Yeah. There's nothing much new happens in your life because you're not open to it. You know, it's it is that suffering, and the way out of suffering is to stop. Just stop and look around.
Carl Gustav Jung will say that unnecessary suffering, but it takes a different skill set, a different mind to see that it's unnecessary, because we live in a world with things. We are bombarded by social media, by messages, the TV, and you know, we bombarded. It's hard to. It takes a lot of work actually to close yourself to the world of devices, of things, whatever that means, and then look inside yourself. So it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a world of addiction, you see, because the addiction is to escape from the emptiness, the nothingness.
Yeah.
That it sees as nothing, you see. The separate self sees the flow of creation in the present moment as nothingness, because it doesn't have any memory and it doesn't have any future. Doesn't have any past or future. You're flowing with it, like this. You've got this flow of creation. You are in it. You've dived in the river and you're flowing downstream.
That's right.
So you're in it. You're in it. So you don't have any resistance to it. You're not trying to swim back up. You know, you're actually just open, like Jesus on the cross. You know, that's the symbol. He's open to everything, suffering or whatever. It's not suffering if you're open. The place of suffering is the locked doors. You know, the fortresses that we create around ourselves. We're drawn a circle around us, and we use all our energy to maintain this little world that I am at the center of. I have to defend it. You know, I'm this sort of person. I can't do that. I can't do that. I'm this sort of person. If anything else comes close, oh no, no, that's not me. Oh yeah, come in, more cigarettes. I'll have some Netflix as well, and whatever. You know, I'm being a bit cynical, but it is a bit like that.
Yeah.
And we don't see beauty. From there, you cannot see beauty. You cannot experience true beauty, because true beauty is who we are, which is nothingness. Try and understand that.
Not that easy. Not that easy.
Try and grasp hold of that, you know.
No, you need to be open and you need to be receptive, and it's a lot of work. I think it's not that easy for people to let go of things, let go of the internet, let go of Netflix that you mentioned, and this and that, and then look inside yourself. It's not that easy, but
well, you know, one of the biggest things in life in the moment is you know, we eat too much, we drink too much, we trying to take in stuff thinking it'll make us better, but actually it just makes us fat and unwell. Just go out into nature. Nature is the biggest teacher. You just go sit in nature and listen to the birds. It's just going about its business. Through the pandemic, through wars, it does its best. Even on the battlefields, the crows still fly around, you know, the flowers will grow in the mud if they can. Everything does its best because it's not affected by the fear of future, which is constantly referring back to the past. It's the nature of nature to be happy and flow.
nature, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully one day, if you ever come to the United States, ping me and then we'll get together for dinner. You are always welcome to come to my house. And then I never been in Australia, but so I hopefully one day we'll go there. One day I would like to meet you one day face to face, not Zoom, no via internet. You know, have dinner or you know. Or
and read the book because it gives you much more of an insight into.
I will.
Into who, you know, the story is not who I am, but it's important to be aware of that, you know, to revisit and complete the past experience, because that's what it helped me to go back into those memories, to re-experience things, and it's clarified a lot of things for me writing that.
Yeah, feel free to mention your website where listeners can buy your music or the book and the CDs and the vinyl, whatever you have.
Yeah. I have all the usual stuff, the Spotify, Apple Music. Just type in Terry Oldfield, you'll get all the stuff. My YouTube channel, I have 200 videos there.
Really? All right, I need to check it out.
Yeah, just type in Terry Oldfield YouTube.
Yeah.
And this book, best to get it on Amazon.
Yep.
It's easy, they just send it to you. Or you can get the Kindle version on Amazon.
Yeah.
Hard copy, soft copy. I've done my best to make things available, and I'm always doing more to try and share this this wonderful simplicity that's available to us all if we're willing to let go.
If we're willing to will, that's the willingness is the difficult part, you know.
Yeah, because we've got too much stuff. Yeah, it works. This simplicity will overflow into your relationships.
Yeah.
It will overflow into your creativity, your health. The body will be healthy. I'm 73. I'm still walking and running and doing everything I need to do.
Good for you, man.
Still functioning.
Yeah.
You know.
Good
so
for you, man.
I'd like to, you know, my if I have any ambition is just to share as much as possible with people.
That's good. It was very nice talking to you, Terry, and hopefully one day I will have the opportunity to talk to your sister Sally and your brother Mike.
You never know. We might be coming over.
Yeah. One day will be good to do like a Zoom session with the three of you, the Oldfield family. You know, I don't know if that will be receptive to do that. No.
It's always been my dream, but you know, I seem to be the one that's out and about doing things. The others, they're leading a quieter life. Yeah.
So you call on the phone? You don't do this kind of stuff? No.
No, we don't. I have visited because they both live in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
And it's quite a journey from Australia. So.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I will have the opportunity to meet them. I like Sally's music, and I like, of course, I love my brother, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to meet them as well. It was very
All right.
nice talking to you. Have a great day down there. I will send you the link tonight when they process the interview. And it was
you
very
very
nice
much.
talking to you. And I'm looking forward to meeting you one day, man.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.